We are here. Happy Monday. It is Monday, March 3rd. We're coming in at a special time today because we have the absolute pleasure of having, gosh, you have such a resume on your Twitter. It's crazy. The host of the wonderfully great Contagious podcast, best-selling author, keynote speaker, investor, advisor, AI at IBM, just a litany of things. I don't think I have enough time to even list all the amazing accomplishments you have here that are listed. But, ladies and gentlemen, Tejas Kumar, currently operating over at Data Stacks, which again is a wonderful company. Shout out to them. I get to talk to Carter in a couple days too, so that's exciting. But yeah, welcome. It's great to have you. Did I
Hey, thanks
miss
for having me.
anything?
Well, you didn't miss anything actually. In fact, you got something that is not even true yet. I proactively updated my bio to say at IBM, but the of course the acquisition isn't final. They intend to buy DataStax, but this will take some time. But yes, no, that's I'm very excited about this chat.
Confirm or deny. Also a great cook.
Sorry, can you say that again?
It's somebody dropped here. Also a great cook.
Ah, yes. I don't know who that is. 200. But I mean, if I'll take it. I love cooking. I cook Indian food, and I eat my own food, and I love it. So
Ooh, I love a good paneer. What was that dish I had? I was with Gant Laborde and we went to Blue India in Atlanta, and there was this amazing paneer dish that they prepared there. I'll have to find it. I tried to replicate it once. It did not come out as good as the restaurant, but
yeah, yeah.
uh,
Was it palak paneer? Is that that
It
was
was in
called?
like a really savory, like red sauce with onions, and I cannot remember what the name of it. I'll find it. I'll
Yeah.
send. I'm sure you'll do it justice, though. It is great to have you. We've never actually had the opportunity to sit down and kind of chat, but I take so much inspiration from everything that you're saying in the podcast, and I've had the opportunity to see you talk at some of the events, not live. I still look forward to that, but where where do you where do you say your tech journey started? I know for anybody that doesn't isn't familiar with your personal story, a lot of us have already heard it, but maybe you could just kind of give us a rundown because you've been in tech for a long time.
Yeah, I've been in tech professionally since gosh 2008. That is a long. That's like 17 years. But I've also been in tech unofficially since I was 8 years old. I have an illness that is fatal and incurable. That introduced a very interesting set of constraints. Or really, the only physical activity I could do was type on a keyboard, and it's great. It's a really. I mean, it's not great having a physical illness that's fatal, but it's great having constraints. Right. I think this is what makes any engineering effort extraordinary is the constraints of a system. And my constraints led me to start at a young age writing code and get me to where I am today. um, and in some ways I feel for people who don't quite have those constraints. Like growing up, I did some work volunteering with youth and so on. And what I've seen is a lot of people tend to be confused about I don't know what I want to do in the future. I don't know where I'm going to
Mm.
go. I don't like literally. I've spoken to like high school students going to college, and I'm like, "What do you want to do?" I don't know. Spoke to their parents. What does your son or daughter want to do? I don't know. They maybe want to do this or do that, but there's a lack of direction usually that I've noticed that I fortunately have never had. Like from literally from age 10 in school, students and teachers and the principal and everybody was like, "Yeah, you're just going to do something with tech. You're going to be the tech guy." And it was very painful. Of course, there were years of trauma and suffering. There still are, but those constraints are something very special.
I love that. I think sometimes people are stuck in that paralysis from analysis situation, which maybe you didn't necessarily have to contend with because at this point, even in tech, and I'm sure you see it all the time, there's just so many options. There's a litany of things to look at and do and try. But that wasn't necessarily something that you kind of had to face. So what were your first steps then?
Yeah, I mean, we had, so again, as I mentioned, there was nothing much I could do. We had my family was poor. I grew up quite poor, and we had some computer that my dad just somehow had. He never. I don't think he bought it. I think someone loaned it to him.
Mm.
And it had Prince of Persia on it, and I think more some a few games. And I started playing games, and I was like, this is cool. And I always wondered like how are these made. Very soon after that, got a Game Boy with Pokemon Blue. What a game! And
Wow,
I was really
classic.
fascinated by games. And at some point, like, hey, my parents, both of them went to work. We were poor. We needed every every amount of currency we could get. My parents both went to work. My brother is healthy. He went to school. I was alone at home every day, more or less. Like in a school year, I'd attend maybe 19 days, excuse me, of school. Um, and that's because I spent most of the other time like fighting for my life, about to die in the emergency hospital. My disease is very complicated, and so at some point, my parents were like, "Yeah, it's probably better he just doesn't like physically attend school." And so what we would do is like my dad would go to my friends' houses, JB, if he's listening, and would get his notebooks, photocopy them, and I would study from his notes. Right. So I spent all this to say I spent a lot of time at home. Um, and when you have all this time alone at home and a computer, this again constraints. Like that was literally it was either be bored or turn on the TV, but there's probably nothing good on anyway. This wasn't like on demand TV, right? This was like you just watch whatever's on at the time. Um, or just go on this computer and like mess around. And so I chose often to go on the computer and just mess around to the point where I'm like getting in the Windows registry and trying to change the icon of the start button and stuff like this. And at some point, my brother learned, he went to a course on HTML, and this is also just completely accidental. Like my parents were like, "Hey, let's computers are a thing. Let's send him to a and he's the healthy one, so he gets to go." He went and he came. He used to come back home and just show me what he learned, just in a way of like making this accessible to me because I couldn't, right? And he showed me things that he wasn't that interested in. For example, write angular brackets HTML, right? Like he just wrote HTML in Notepad in Windows and saved this as a .html file and then opened it in a browser. And he was like, okay, so this is what I learned, I guess. Like he didn't understand what I understood, that this is the internet. This is how you build on the internet. And I only knew that because I'd spent all this other time like just experimenting with random nonsense on the computer. And he showed me how to write an HTML file. I was like, whoa, that's the language of the web. And from that point on, I was 8 years old at the time. From that point on, I got obsessed with this language of the web, and then it's only a matter of time until you go, okay, but how do I like style it? What's this CSS thing? Okay, how do I like make it interactive? Okay, Java. And so like literally since 8 years old, that's just been my thing. I will say now, I'll probably get some hate for this, but
Ooh, spicy take.
I feel like I've on a personal level maxed out um, building things on the web platform. Meaning, like I can build anything I want. It's very easy for me. It's very. I've been doing this for now, like, gosh, 17 years, right?
Wow.
And the web platform, because it's such a stable piece of the global infrastructure, doesn't move as fast, and so like I can keep up pretty consistently, even with like new things in CSS5 and so on. And so I will say it doesn't excite me as much because of its stability, which is a good thing. Like I don't want a new web surprise every day. Yeah.
Yeah.
But AI is like that. It's like the wild west. It's like the web when I was a child. And so I've shifted since to AI, and I've just been really enjoying that, building with, on, and for AI, which is sort of the new thing. Just because it's so unstable at this, I love unstable stuff.
Yeah.
That you can now innovate and build new things. Yeah.
How? Wow. That's that's crazy. I definitely want to talk about AI, especially. I mean, you're working with it directly now. Um, but just kind of reflecting on the story you told us and having to deal with that as a kid, like how hard was that for you? Like what? I can't even imagine. I mean, I have a son who's 7, so right around the same age you were when you were kind of handling that. Like, how did that mindset like shape how you approach everything now in life?
Yeah, it was, you know, it was bad. I mean, it would be an understatement to say anything less. Even it's even an understatement to just say it was bad, right? Like I
Mm-hmm.
was clinically pronounced dead at age 4. Like there's a
Wow.
there's a document that says time of death. And you can imagine what that would have done to my parent. Your parent. Imagine your 4-year-old just dead, like lying there with flowers on his corpse, maybe, right? And then they realized, oh wait, no, his death is a mistake. Turns out I was alive. So and that continued from age 0 to like 22 till when I moved to Germany. And so yeah, it was not easy at all. But it's not without benefits, right? Like for example, as you mentioned, like it has profoundly shaped the way I approach engineering today, um, and not just engineering but life. Like Rachel Neighbors, a friend of
Mm.
mine, will say that I've got a joie de vivre, a joy of life, and that's very true. Like I tend to have very amplified emotions, both with joy and with despair. And which is the despair, people don't like seeing that because I talk about I'm going to kill myself and whatever. But the joy, and this is also bipolar disorder, just for those listening who think it sounds familiar. The joy is tremendous. Like I just, because of my background and history, I feel levels of joy that others just can't. And so there's times where, like, we go out to a speaker dinner or something at a conference, and we get food, and I eat a bite of whatever it is that I'm eating, and I have this reaction. Like usually, it's not something I consciously do. It's like an unconscious reaction. I'm just like, oh my gosh, wow, and people who have shared meals with me will know what I'm talking about, and they often like look at me like, whoa man, that's such a big reaction, it's just food. And I'm like, yeah, okay, it's but it's tasty. And I like a lot of the things that we take for granted. I just don't know. Like I tend to just instinctively, unconsciously, just enjoy things much much deeper. I'm currently fasting for the holy month of Ramadan. I am not Muslim. I just do this like out of
Mm.
solidarity with folks. And I have this like protein bar sitting here on my desk, and it's tremendous. I'm just looking at this protein bar going like, hey, the sun's going to set, and it'll be time to eat, and that's going to be like the most delicious, you know what I mean? So that's
Yeah,
sort of how
yeah.
it shaped. So that's one way it has shaped my approach to life. But with engineering, I grew up on a timeline. I grew up with a very strong sense of urgency, to where like I need to give 150% of myself now or I'm dead. Yeah, a lot of it was maybe for context, what would be helpful is I grew up in a healthcare system where if you're dying, they will save your life for free, but anything else costs a lot of money. Specifically, the medication that I need to stay alive costs a lot of money. It used to cost about $12 to $15,000 a week, and so no one can afford. Like I think even today, that's very hard
Yeah.
to afford. And so it was the situation was just wait until you're dying, and then go to the emergency hospital to get that free treatment. Um, and that whole, and that was 19 years. I lived like that for 19 years. That led to me sort of just really operating strongly on a timeline to maximize whatever time I have. If I have 6 hours or 3 hours to go to the hospital and get this done, then I'm going to like really maximum focus, maximum arousal for that time. Obviously, thankfully, my life and death is not that urgent today. Because of the healthcare system in Germany, I still have the disease. But that sort of like sense of urgency, yeah, to reach an outcome translates to the engineering world, where if I'm building an application, if I'm preparing a talk, if I'm doing something like this, I normally give myself a time box. I'm like, I have this amount of time, and by the end of this, either this is going to be shipped or there will be significant progress. And by significant progress, I mean like relative to the average industry peer, I should have accomplished more, like 3 times as much. And if I have a 5-day work week, my own expectation of myself is to deliver like 15 days worth of work. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that sort of comes from just having this like quite ridiculous sense of urgency, where if I don't go to the hospital in time or something, then I will probably die.
Wow. That's so intense. I mean, looking at the bigger picture, though, I guess you can definitely see how that unknown variable of tomorrow for you has shaped how you enjoy today, or the moment today.
Yeah,
Um,
and another consequence of this is I just don't take anything seriously, or maybe too seriously. I have a family. I take them seriously, but you know, I often. So I had this meeting with my we call them coaches at Data Stacks, not managers,
yeah.
coaches, which I like. And I had this meeting with my coach Carter, who was I post memes on the internet, and there's this one meme that really hit me very hard. Right, it was this meme of I think Sunil Pai posted it, where it's the Family Guy scene where Cleveland and Quagmire and Peter are at the bar,
Yeah.
and someone sits down and says something, and then Quagmire says, "Why would anyone start a conversation like this?" Um, and the thing, so the meme was Peter sat down and said 2025 is the year of AI agents, and then Quagmire was like, why would anyone start a conversation like this? And I thought that was hilarious, and so I've been making fun of the industry, and I do this a lot. I make fun of the industry because sometimes we take ourselves way too seriously. AI, this AI, that Apple has taken AI so seriously and just completely fumbled Apple intelligence, right? And I think from my perspective, being consistently faced with my finitude, my death, um, growing up for the first like 22 years of my life, um I just have this perspective that honestly none of this is real. um
Mm.
like look, you can build your empires, and you can have your Versailles triangle dominance of the entire internet and react whatever you want, but at the end of the day you're going to be dust like everything and everyone else who has come before you. Um and so I think it's cool. I think it's cool to build a great legacy, but Alexander the Great and the Roman Empire don't exist anymore. So there's a limit, and I think working within those limits is cool. But lest you start to take yourself way too seriously, you're just gonna not really enjoy life to its fullness. Yeah, and so
Mm.
I do have an abundant life. I also thankfully I've got some things going for me. I have the book and all this podcast and all that, which is great, and I enjoy it. But I'd be foolish to think this is worth grinding at the cost of my family, friends, and community. So, yeah, that's so the finitude has really helped make things more special. And some people will say, I apologize, I'm monologuing here, but some
You're
people would
good. You're good.
say, um, hey, this talking about death so often, and the finitude, the finiteness of life is so depressing. But I think to me it's freeing. Yeah, like it literally tells me none of this matters, so why not make the most of it? It's kind of like Christmas time for those who celebrate, or Ramadan like now is only really special because it ends. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
why, what if it was Christmas every day? Like would it even be special? I don't think so. So finitude is a kind of beautiful thing, and I think the more we embrace that, the more we actually like live. I could die tomorrow, Jason, and I would tell you that I had a really great life. I would like there are some regrets, of course, like with everything, but like on the average, wow, it's incredible. You know?
Wow. I love that. And the message that I get out of there again is just like, take what we have and live it to the fullest. Like we don't have to, we might not have tomorrow. It's like today should matter so much, and you should just impact it positively everybody while you can. Um, Also, what we just talked about the Roman Empire, I feel like that checks our box for thinking about the Roman Empire for the day, because I think there was a stat somewhere that all men think about the Roman Empire at least once a day. So there it is, everybody. Um, how uh, I just, there's so many questions I have around this, and like how it shaped your whole career, but I feel like you summarized it really well. I kind of want to, where where did the idea for your podcast come? Because I feel like you have a format, but you get so much deeper than most of the technical podcasts. And even that, you are able to transition in and out of the technical topics, but also you get like such a personal level with these people. Like, was this something that you always wanted to do? And what was the intention of it for you?
Yeah, that's a great question. The intention is um, pretty self-serving. One consequence of growing up the way I did as well, and this leads to the podcast, is that I um, was always the center of everyone's world because I
Mm.
was the most fragile. So like parents, uncles, my own brother, like everyone who was older than me, was like, "Oh my gosh, is he okay? Does he need this?" Like I literally was the center. Um, and for a child growing up, that teaches you, like deeply teaches you, like subconsciously, that you are the center of the universe. Um, Fast forward all these years, this is really bad. This is like maladaptive for me because I'm a massive douchebag. Like I literally think that like people just owe me stuff. Like I'll go order a coffee and the barista is like, preparing it, and I'm sitting there thinking, why don't I have this already? Like I'm really like not a pleasant person if I don't check myself. And so the podcast sort of comes from there, where I've spoken at, and I do speak at, a lot of conferences, tech conferences. Um, and unfortunately, some of these conferences, maybe most of them, they're funded by tickets. They're funded by sponsors, but also people like pay money to attend, and this is how it's a business, right? And because of that, they have to buy us to like lots of cool speakers. And when you have lots of cool speakers, you have a very full schedule, and each speaker gets like 20 minutes. And I was like, but I have so much more to say. In fact, I wish other speakers also had like the opportunity to say more. I wish Kent Dodds could come on there and just do like 3 hours, 4 or 5 hours on like Epic Web. Um, and that's where it came from. Where I was like, look, this is a format that's great, but I want another format that, instead of being sort of like technical fast food, is a technical 18-course dinner. You know what I mean? And it's sort of fine dining, and I don't mean fine dining in the sense of like I'm going to wear a suit and tie and all of this, but it's got depth to it, and so that's why I created the podcast.
Oh, I love that. Also, I love how self-aware you are. Like mentioning that, I see some comments here like, "Oh my god, that was hilarious." But I think it's important. And how do you kind of limit that? I don't want to say limit that, but like when you notice it, like maybe what are some of the steps you take to sort of counteract that? Because I could imagine that that's probably posed some obstructions in career or life. So what are some of the steps that you take to counteract that?
Sorry, to counteract what?
Like you're being the center of the earth douchebaggery, if you will.
Yeah, it is what I said earlier. It's just reminding myself that I'm gonna die. In fact, I don't need a reminder. Look, it's Monday, and on Monday is when I take an injection in a vein. This vein specifically, there's a vein right here, um, where if I don't take that, I'm dead within like 1 or 2 weeks, maybe. And so, I like what? Why am I? I'm like the worst center of the universe. Imagine if like the sun, which is the center of our galaxy, was like that, just likely to die in 2 weeks. It would take all life with it, right? And I don't like that's ridiculous. And so just being able to make myself small and realize, hey, I am. Some say I'm significant, like in tech and whatever. I have this book and whatever, right? But like, if you zoom out, I'm really not that significant. And I think this is the thing: is like, I'm a part of a system that some would believe is created or just happen. Either way, like the system is so large and so beautiful, and it all works together in harmony. um like I'm a part of that, but I'm not it. And so for me, like sort of zooming out, I guess, to answer your question, is what really helps, is like getting a view of the system, the world, creation that's way bigger than me.
Wow. Yeah, that no, well said. That was the perfect answer, I think, as far as for that. You mentioned that you do a lot of public speaking. You do a lot of conferences. You get asked to speak at conferences, which is pretty amazing. What do you think resonates with the audience so much that you do get asked? Like, what's your approach to these conference talks that has made you desirable in that area?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's a weird dichotomy. It's a really weird, and feel free to copy this if you want to get asked to speak at conferences too. I like, for me, it's I combine, and I'm realizing this as I'm talking to you. I combine not caring at all, because I don't take any of this seriously, to caring a lot. Like it's so weird. Like I genuinely think this is all just ridiculous. The fact that I even speak at conferences is just absolutely bananas. But at the same time, given that I am speaking at this conference, and there's people, sometimes there's thousands of people. Jason, there was like 6,000 people at one conference last year.
Wow.
Yeah, and I take that extremely serious. Okay, so I guess here's the answer that I just totally improvised: is I take circumstances, things, not very seriously at all. But I take people extremely seriously. I
Mm,
think that's the thing, is the fact that I'm speaking at a conference. The conference has organized. It's in a man. I spoke at this absolutely wild stage. It was like a I don't even know what it's called, an arena. Yeah, it was a
wow.
circle in the middle and a big circle around it. It was like the Colosseum, and there were 6,000 people there, and it's impressive, the stage, but also kind of absurd. Um, I take none of that seriously, but what I do take seriously is the people. There's going to be 6,000 individuals here, 6,000 people who, some of them want a more fruitful career so that they can feed their families. Some of them who, they're refugee. They literally come from like Syria or Ukraine or somewhere, and they're trying to rebuild themselves. They're trying to have a different hope and a future. And like, man, I've spoken to people who have come from all over the place. And imagine if I'm such a fool to not take that seriously and just give some like clickbait talk. Like for me, this is just evil, right? And so that's really what it is. I think the priorities are in the right place, and I think that shows through every single thing I do. Is that human beings are like the apex, the maximum priority, and therefore I will prepare day and night to create technically deep, valid, and good content for the sake of them. And I think that's the attraction. Is like I can also joke there about silly things. Hey, look at us, we're like in an arena, how ridiculous is this? But while we're here, let me do my best to give you things that will change your life. And so that, I think that weird dichotomy is what organizers and attendees find useful and attractive.
Bo- Bonus points for using dichotomy. I love that word. It's like such a great word to use. Did you end the talk there with a gladiator reference? Are you not entertained? Did you throw that at them at any point?
No, it wasn't at the Coliseum. It was just an arena. But
Same idea though. So how do you prep for talks? Like, do you look at the market or the industry? Do you just kind of go off of feel? Like, what's the whole workflow for you for prepping for a conference talk?
you've heard this term vibe coding, right? That's
Mm-hmm.
going around these days. It's like that. I don't actually ever prep for a talk.
Mm.
I like the slides are made 40 minutes before I go on stage usually. I don't, which is why I have a hard time with organizers asking me for like a big detail, like give me, minute by minute what you're going to talk about. I was like, I don't know. Like if you care this much, then ideally your audience. You tell me what you want me to talk about. But I don't work that way. I have a lot of knowledge and well, yeah, no, I don't know another word. Knowledge and maybe insight into the domain in which I work and speak. Like I know React inside and out. I know AI. Maybe not as good as like Karpathy or the XAI team or whatever, but I know enough to have something to offer. And that which I offer, which is a very small subset of like Karpathy knowledge, um, has to be high quality, right? And so that's how I prep. Is like it's not anchored to a talk or an event. It's literally every day. Like every day I go to work, I'm like, what am I learning, what am I researching, what am I building today, what am I breaking? And all of this sort of in the back of my mind goes into this repository of, hey, these things could be valuable to people. And so then I'm speaking at like productivity conference at the end of this month, where they asked me, hey, how are agents making your workflow better? I'm not anchoring a talk to that conference. I've literally just been using agents for years, making mistakes and building things. And so I already have it prepared in an unstructured way. What I've got to do now, I guess you call this preparing for the talk, is just bring structure to it. And how I do this is like I literally just open the notes app on my iPhone and I just start making a list. Okay, I have 20 minutes, 30 minutes. What am I going to add as bullet points? That's it. And then I add like expected durations for each bullet point. This one's probably going to take 5 minutes. That one's probably
Mm.
going to take 7 minutes, and that's it. And then when I think this is decent, I'll put it into a slide deck and maybe think of some demos or something, and that's it. But they're pretty low lift for me because I just tend to be very familiar. Like I just work with this stuff day in day out. So
Mm.
yeah, it's not that um, difficult or time consuming.
Nice. No, I feel like that's sort of my approach too. I go with what I'm feeling. I do try to prepare, but I also I've got to feel it. You've got to like you said, vibe coding. Um, you've been to many conferences at this point. Like, what were some of the best conference experiences you've had? And then I also kind of want to get feedback on you because the conference has evolved. especially like post-COVID conferences, and you've seen a lot of decline in attendees at certain ones and stuff like that. Like, what needs to change at conferences in your mind too? So, two-part question.
Yeah, I think the best experiences I have, no surprise, all have to do with people. Um, Probably, there's a conference called InfoBip Shift,
Mm,
um, that is just so profound. This one has a strong place in my heart. In fact, um, I spoke to the I got invited again this year to speak at two of their. So they've got three events: one in Miami, one in Croatia, and one in Malaysia,
mm,
literally across three continents. And um, I love the team. I know the team. We're very good friends. Sarah, if you're listening, hi. And they invited me to speak at Miami and Malaysia. And this year, I was like, I don't want to travel so much. So I told them, I was like, maybe not. And then they responded and they said, okay, but like it's our first time in Malaysia. It's a new space. We don't really know anyone there. Can you make a referral? And I mean, I couldn't say no. I said, fine, I'll do it. And I'll do it willingly and I'll do it happily because I just love you guys and I want to support you. Um, so yeah, the reason it's been so special is because every single time I've gone to an InfoBip Shift conference, I've met really awesome people who have been decent people, like wonderful people, but also who have like blessed my career in significant ways. And not in the way that not in like giving me a job or anything, but just by letting me like through osmosis like learn from them, yeah, just organically. One special memory from InfoBip Shift was the speaker hotel was like at a beach. It was actually a really nice beach resort,
ooh.
where we so a few speakers, Ben Lesh, formerly at Google, now at Citadel, Ben Lesh, Una Kravitz, still at Google web platform engineering, and a few others where like it's late at night, it's like 10, 11 at night, um, and we just like went out on the beach, super late at night, and we are just talking about like things that's on our mind. It was very freestyle, it was very open, um, but you had the environment being absolute pitch dark. They turned off all the lights at the hotel at
Mm,
nighttime, and it was absolute pitch darkness on a beach. And you look up and you see, I saw like three shooting stars that night as we talked. Yeah, and it's just tremendous. So InfoBip Shift, yes, it's great content and great delivery, great speakers and stuff, but also you're able to just like meet people there very well. Your second question, can you remind me again what it was?
yeah, you've seen the evolution of
Yeah,
conferences in your time. Like, what needs to change? Like, what's
that's yeah.
feedback for you?
It's difficult because businesses have money and money makes conferences possible, but businesses want returns on that
Mm,
investment, understandably so. And unfortunately, just people getting together and vibing, doesn't
right.
return any investment. And so, like, hey, let's go back to conferences like even before COVID. So you mentioned pre-COVID and post-COVID. We could even go pre-COVID, just at the genesis of like conferences in general.
Mm,
They were very different. They were so great. They were just people saying, "Hey, I built this thing. Here's how what I learned. Here's how." Just people just presenting like random nonsense. Like, "Hey, I made a skiing game, like chip challenge. Here's how it works in JavaScript." And then of course also this was great for vendors like Google, who has the web platform. So what you would have is like a bunch of cool case studies from like indie developers or maybe even employed developers on something cool they built, and then interspersed with that is like a few talks from like Google, Meta, like here and there, just to like update people. And this was great. These were usually sponsored by Google and Meta and the Fang, like the giant companies,
mm,
because they could get their message out, and their message was well balanced with just indie developer great content. This is how it used to be. There was no DevRel. There was no, oh, this is a marketing vector where we can just spam people with product pitches and call them talks. This was not the case.
mm,
That started to emerge just before COVID, where companies realized, wait a second, we could actually get more ROI by doing what Google and Meta do, but make all the talks just basically sale. In fact, we'll invent a discipline around this called developer relations and just say that's your job. Go get us followers. Um, and it already started, a lot of people started to say, oh, I don't like this feels very soulless, because in a sense it's not humans connecting with humans about cool tech they've built. It's businesses connecting with humans under the guise of cool tech they're
mm,
built. It's very, and we can tell that we have a sixth sense. um, and so that's pre-COVID. Things though did take off, and things were pretty good pre-COVID because the events were working. Um, but they were already starting to decline. Post COVID, I think everybody just got way more radicalized about the DevRel. I'm going to sell you something, but call it a talk. That just like really took off. And I think this is why, honestly, this is why it's declining. So it's declining from businesses because they got used to, I'm going to spend money and get returns, but they don't get returns now.
Mm,
And this is also declining by interest from developers, where developers are like, do I even want to go to this? Like, it's going to be a bunch of like corporate people telling me things about products. And so and to corroborate everything I said, the best conferences that I talk to a lot of developers, the best conferences that developers report are ones where it's just like open source people talking about cool things they built. JS Heroes is the best JavaScript conference in Europe,
mm,
for that reason. Most of the talks are just organic and also local. They have a few local speakers to the region, and it's just useful for them. Of course, businesses have no interest in this, and so they won't sponsor, or it'll be harder for them to sponsor. But JS Heroes is an entirely non-profit conference, which means they don't need that much money. They just need to cover their expenses, and so that's why this conference is literally, I think, probably the last standing, one of the last standing JavaScript conferences in Europe. Most have died. JSConf Budapest, JSConf Berlin, a few others have just died. They don't exist anymore. But JS Heroes, being non-profit, is still standing. I think because of that, because they don't rely overly on profit from businesses. Um, and the other ones that like what is it? JS Nation is in Amsterdam. That's another one. They're a very large production. Tickets are $1,000. Like it's a big deal. They're usually sponsored by a lot of
wow.
conference and stuff, by a lot of companies and stuff. But I wonder how they will do given the economy. But that's it. We just have two, and the one that is nonprofit is just loved more. Also, one thing JS Heroes does, they're fully transparent about everything. You go on
Mm,
jsheroes.io/transparency, and they will show you like literally where every single euro that they earn goes. They're not. There's nothing nefarious there, and so that also then establishes, hey, we trust this conference. We're going to support it, either from a community level, or from a company level. And often companies have like open source and community budgets that they just pledge to give as well. So
mhm.
yeah, I think that's why we're seeing what we're seeing.
Oh, I love that. And when you said that they were a non for profit and had that kind of transparency, it immediately triggered the thought of Danny Thompson's conference, the Commit Your Code conference that he's been doing. And I feel like that's also why he's had a great amount of success, so much so that he already booked the next one and it's already like sold out because people want to be involved in those types of ecosystems. So I love that feedback. Shout out to everybody that's listening. By the way, we're about halfway through. My audio's been pretty quiet. Really? Are you just? I can't tell if Roxy's trolling me or not. She likes to do that. Shout out to Roxy though. She actually had a question, or well, she didn't have a question, but I'm gonna form it like a question. She was saying that she wishes she had all of your React knowledge. Now, I will take that and turn it into a question. If she wanted to, based on your opinion of the industry and how you sort of direct people to do their learning, Tejas, where would you point people that are looking to learn React from novice to experienced?
That's a good question. There's many ways to answer this. I think if you want to learn React, react.dev is really the best place. The document, like so many developers, I used to be guilty of this. Is like I want to know a thing, I just never read the docs end to end. I just go build. And so I'm not saying Roxy has done that. Roxy, let us know in the comment if you have. But I instead, I know that we're likely to do. It's a pattern. And so React.dev, reading it top to bottom, inside and out, would be a great place to start. Um, and then I think also just like building things with React, running into problems and so on, and complicated things. Not a to-do list, but like a Google Docs clone. That's going to give you something to learn. And so I think learning by reading the docs and learning by doing is great. Um, of course, I have a podcast. We haven't actually had a deep dive on React yet, but I think technical podcasts and content is great for this. And yeah, that's if you wanted to learn how to use React, those resources are good. But um, I think there's tremendous benefit to be had from not just learning React as in how to apply it, but learning how React is built. Like how what is it actually doing? Like from a first principles from JavaScript, like how does it it's just a JavaScript library. So if we go one layer down and look at the JavaScript, what's actually happening, right? How does
Mm-hmm.
React actually work? How is it built? I think that's the secret sauce. And you can do that a couple ways. One, you can just like try to build your own React clone, you know. Two is that I wrote this book, Fluent React, that that's what the book is. It's literally like, here's if you were to like if React didn't exist and you were to make it from scratch, this book will show you like how it works under the hood. So those are, I think, some pointers for all approaches.
I love that. I believe the book is available via link from your website, which I put there at the bottom. Everybody can go check that out. That's awesome. We did
And also,
actually
I
have.
do. Sorry to I also
No, you're
just
okay.
I know a lot of people can't afford this book. I didn't decide the pricing, by the way. My publisher did, and no shade to them. But of course, I know that America is hyper capitalist, and people have to make ends meet. And also, like I think people just don't want to spend like $70, $80 or something on a book. So if for whatever reason somebody wants a free copy, just hit me up. I'm happy to send you a free copy.
Wow, love that. So definitely check out the book. We did have an AI related question pop in, and I did want to pivot over to that because that's your current focus and the way it is in the industry. I'm sure you have lots of opinions on that, so I do want to hear them. Jeff Jesse came in and was wondering, what would you say are some of the best ways to start learning how to developer agents how developer agents build their own agents to work with? If that question makes sense, or maybe he can clarify it. That doesn't to me, but I'm hoping it does to you.
Yeah, I think he means how to develop agents, and it could
Hmm.
be autocorrect saying how to develop our agents. But I mean, this is my full time job is
Yeah.
to democratize and make building with AI, specifically agents, very easy and approachable to everybody. At DataStax, we create a tool, an open source tool. It's open source. You know, we don't, own it. It's MIT licensed, as far as I know. We make this tool called Langflow, and Langflow is awesome because it's literally created with the intention of making AI very approachable. So if you wanted to build an agent, literally, if you wanted to build your first AI agent, just go to langflow.new, and you there's just like a full guide, very easy. Within like 30 minutes max, you'll have your first AI agent that does a job. That page has a video of like what agents even are and so on. Yeah, langflow.new. You can maybe scrap the that slash UI, just langflow.new. Is a great resource for that. Yeah.
There we go. There you go. Go check that out. You and I actually had a conversation about that during the December kind of event that DataStax was hosting, and you gave me an opportunity to give you guys some feedback on what we sort of experienced while using the product. How important is like customer experience on the product to you personally? I mean, obviously companies love that, but like for you, when you're so passionate about what you're building, like do you seek that out? Do you love it? Do you like, maybe they're wrong? Like, how do you approach all that?
I think it's probably one of the most foolish things anyone can do to just think the customers are wrong. Um, I also think it's very foolish to think the customer is always right.
Mm,
I think everything has to be carefully considered with nuance. That's also why I started my podcast. And I think I care a lot. I am obsessed with customer and user feedback. I did a course at Stanford University some time ago in human computer interaction. Um, Invaluable. It was a huge value add to my career, where I got to understand like what do users expect, how do you best serve them. But Jason, we talked earlier about what do conference organizers like so much when I
mm,
give talks, and I said it's that I don't take anything seriously except I take the people extremely seriously, that's exactly the same with customer feedback here. So I'm well aware. And I'll get in trouble at work for this. I'm well aware that the DataStax hosted version of Langflow is bad. It's, it's not usable because you will constantly run into resource limits and it'll hang and so on. It's something that I know, it's something that the team knows, and it's something that we're working toward. But it's not an easy problem to solve, right? Like the amount of demand we have, we're like at the limits of what we can get away with. And we're multi-cloud. We're on AWS, we're on Azure, we're on Google Cloud, and we're like at the limit of how many instances we can have on all of them. And so we've got to like work with the hyperscalers or some other way to like heavily extend the amount of resources we can get to serve our users. Right? This is not like a one day thing. This is maybe a quarterly. This is maybe more. And so, yeah, DataStax Langflow is unstable. It's hard to use. It's hard to use because of the networking problems and so on. And that's why, frankly, that's why you have Langflow as an open source thing. You're welcome to self host it. You're welcome to spin it